Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spin Rack. We also have,
Calvin Ellis ready to rock.
so right now as you can see, the Absolute Universe is here. We got Absolute Superman, Absolute Batman, and Absolute Wonder Woman. They're all out there. They're what's the name? East Coast stomping out here. It's not actually the East Coast, but they are out here stomping. But it all starts here with this all in issue, right? And this all in issue. And I think Rob Liefeld made fun of the cardboard thing that Batman had. DC like, why should we? We don't have no problem with our cardboard cover, right? We don't care about it anyway. We're cool. And you got the all-in comic. The first one, no, that's this other universe. But if you go to this one, which is the Justice League Unlimited, it shows them working together, similar to like I guess Avengers 305, where they kind of meet up and they decide that, hey, we're Justice League Unlimited. Everybody got keys, to the thing. Did you get to see this where they go to the new sort of Fangle Watchtower and do their thing? Any thoughts
Oh
on
yeah,
that?
I thought it was oh yeah, I thought it was great. Everybody got a new ID card. It was cool, and then they blew everything up. It was like they really it's like what happened? The clubhouse used to be a good focal point of you know of being a superhero. You have the Fortress of Solitude, you have the Batcave, you have the Arrow Cave, you got the Watchtower, and now they just seem to want to blow it up every 5 seconds. Like, no, it's the clubhouse. It's supposed to be impregnable for the most part. Nobody's supposed to even know it exists, with the exception of the club members. Well, okay, I get it. Clubhouses are stupid. We can't have them. We can't have them anymore. No clubhouses, no secret identity. Nothing. I mean, you would think like if this was the real world, a police station would never be able to exist. It would get blown up all the time.
Yeah, yeah, no, but it's I guess I don't know how much unlimited they're gonna do because I've only seen in Avengers 305 where they kind of just had rotating where you got to see, oh wow, look, it's Black it was what's the name, Black Widow's here. Oh, the Falcon showed up. I didn't think the Falcon was gonna show up. Oh, the West Coast guys are over on the East Side, But it leads to a major thing with Darkseid, right? Where we get to see this big battle with Darkseid, and it leads to this big explosion that Darkseid wanted this loss to happen, this defeat and death to happen, and they don't know where he went. Must be in the new universe, so they send out Booster Gold, and he is surprised to what he sees. And you flip it to the other side. Now, this is what you buy the book for, because this Wes Craig guy has got, he's doing some interesting stuff as how Darkseid is setting up this thing. He fights a lot of DC characters. It kind of wipes the floor with them, but it's just some gorgeous stuff, right? So everything with and it says, hey, every time these characters fall from fashion, the fourth world, you got to remember that they're cool, and this is what they kind of do. So this idea of the dark side version of the universe, in my mind, it's just you're kind of hooked to catch the characters. We're looking at their characters. There's not much Kirby S to them outside of the size of actually Kirby S he did do bulky, but if you go like at how many apples high, most Kirby characters aren't that tall. So this is even and at the same time I think the Batman one is more like the one from you see in the movie in Batman versus Superman because it's almost that was almost square. It just had a little points at the top. Now got those almost gone. But now that we got past anything to say about that, I know you may have to go back into it later. Anything you want to say about the Kirby side? If not, we'll go right to the triumvirate of the new triumvirate of the Ultimate Universe.
We got we can go right into it. I didn't get a chance to go over it as finely as I would have liked. So
Okay. So, I mean, Batman was first. In actuality, I looked at it and I said, if you want cool art and a lot of action, this is what you buy it for. So they gave you what you expect from a Batman issue. It was very action packed, bulky, like the Dark Knight. It just the Dark Knight in the it's like the Dark Knight meets the Last Ronin. Like put those two together, give him some wacky cape wings that do weird stuff and kill, and he got a cool bike. And I think someone hinted that he supposedly has no money, but he got all this cool stuff. Just have fun. Who cares? What are your thoughts on the Batman series?
Well, I think I was already on record saying that this type of world just, from a from a view 30,000 feet above, it suits Batman. It's dark, it's dour, and it's low on hope. And so I didn't really think that they made a lot of changes overall to Batman, with the exception of some of his origin being different, as opposed to Crime Alley, it's a zoo, as opposed to him being a certain height. He's like 7 feet. He doesn't have like the money of Wayne Industries, Wayne Tech behind him. But otherwise, it's like this isn't too different from a Batman story at the end of the day, or an Elseworld story that I might have tripped on years ago. So I didn't, I read it, or really, I consumed it for what it was. And I was like, okay, if you're a Batman fan, I don't see how you could dislike it. And they're still trying to pull in, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to pull in the elements that they really want to emphasize with Batman all the time. So they don't want a detective. They want this brute, thuggish, blunt force trauma hero, if you will, who's just coming in there and laying haymakers, and all of that inspired by The Dark Knight Returns. So even in The Dark Knight Returns, that Batman was still something of a detective, of a master of disguise, of an escape artist, if you will. Not this guy. This guy's just coming in here, with the sledgehammer. And he's just gonna, he's literally coming in with the sledgehammer, literally, taking it off his which people would tell me, oh, that was so cool. He took like that thing on his chest. Yeah, that's really like the hammer, and so on and so forth. I was like, really? You thought that was cool? I was like, that was cool, as opposed to all the other tech and gadgets he's got. That was cool. Like, okay. But then again, I don't know exactly what the people want from Batman, or maybe it's just enough that they weren't expecting that. But I still found this to be very much in line with the Batman story. Not much difference.
Yeah, it's kind of like Batman. Um, the Philadelphia, what's it? No, what's it? The Flyers is the hockey team? That's the hockey team? The Flyers?
Yeah.
It's like hockey Batman. Big, bulky, fight, knock around, got the metal shoulder pads. What we would see in like a roller derby type of Batman. So for
With
the
this
future,
in this curious design that he does for his cape, so he's able to use the cape as more of a weapon. And but again, this goes where, I mean, the idea of Batman, if we go back to 1939, is that it's an outfit, it's a costume to scare criminals. Okay, it's not meant to be. I mean, it wasn't that okay, we pull up one of the ears on the cowl, there's a knife in there, or we got circuitry, in the mask. We got all this other stuff going. The primary idea was that when you saw Batman coming, because of the design of the costume, so on and so forth, it would scare the crap out of criminals, because they were like, "What the heck is this?" And that fear would do them in. And instead, it became, well, we have to make everything about the outfit some sort of weapon, or somehow it's functional. And so we can go one step further now with the cape, and the cape is designed to do these particular things. And I mean, to a certain extent, I can say, okay, cool, but you once it becomes that, then you're starting to give more and more reasons why he doesn't need to be dressed like this. Because you could easily just put on some military gear and go out and do what you're doing. Why do you need to be dressed as a bat? You'd be more functional at the end of the day.
we haven't got to the other characters, but you bring up a point that I would say that
Oh, and Batman, without a doubt, was the best of the three. That's from my reading. So,
okay.
in spite of the criticisms that I'm putting, Batman, without a doubt, was the best of the three. That was the right decision to start with him. That was the best of the three.
So I would say one of the things that, and this is a negative on it, is it would seem, I know Scott Snyder said this is kind of the Batman he wanted to do for a while. But this is something that I think
Yeah,
John, huh?
yeah, right. I said, yeah, right.
But
Okay.
this is something that I think, and this is only for Byrne. This is not John Byrne. This is not for most people. But like in looking at characters like Superman or Batman or the Fantastic Four, the one thing when you talk about in creation, even though you know that the superhero came first, you have the feeling like, hey, Reed Richards could have been thought of first. There's a lot of thought put into Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne in their original inception of what not everything saying we had to get to this point to get them. The outgrowth of these characters seemed like they were sitting down and saying that there was a lot of backstory to these characters, and then they led to this character, just as far as their characterization goes. This character here and the rest of them seem like here's the design we wanted to do, and we're gonna do a story, put a Bruce Wayne around it. So it's like that's
Oh, so like a Mort Wessinger type thing. Like, here's the cover. Give me the story.
yeah, and that's the thing. I think Byrne was talking about the Alpha Flight that when he was a kid, not a kid, but I guess young, he created these characters from design first, but no thought of the backstory as he was going on. And then when he used them, he had to come up with backstories for them because none of them had them. Whereas that's where as a kid, you kind of come in and say, "Here's my character," and somewhat the X Men were kind of the new X Men were kind of like that. Whereas the original X Men, even though some of them their characters came afterwards, the characterization was very strong in what came up of it, where it wasn't just felt like it was tacked on, even though the Beast didn't have the same personality he had from issue one. So one of the things that's hard is like it seems like this he wanted to work with this artist, which is one of the things. He said if you were to redesign Batman, what would you do? And then that fuels you. But at the same time, you have the people like the same struggles that Byrne had with that sort of thing is the same struggles that the Image guys had with the characters that were their fan characters when they did the Image books. Most of them lasted like 10 issues. They're just like, hey, there's no reason to keep doing this. Or at the same time, I'd give you credit if they went to writing. So it seems like something that that came up with as a cool look, and they built a story around it, which is a way you can do stuff. The hard part is that you're not going to continue to do this unless it's really interesting. Like, I guess Deadpool's in that sense, but somehow it has built a following and it's going on further. So it can happen, but when you have the regular Batman in comparison, it's kind of hard to say at some point we're going to buy into this guy more than the other guys. So even any great ones that we didn't elsewhere, even what's the name, Gotham by Gaslight hasn't maintained its own monthly type of thing or interest to anyone to do that. So anyway, that was my last bit on that. The next one was Wonder Woman, and for me, this one for me was kind of the best of it, even though it felt more like, and I like, if you ever see this comic company called Europe Comics,
Mm-hmm.
I like their stuff. Their stuff is really, it's real clean storytelling, even though it can be some wacky stuff, it can be some surreal stuff, but it's real clear storytelling, but at the same time, it has some of these weirder ideas. But I think the heart of this book, even though it's simple of, is it Apollo bringing Diana to hell and like raises Diana. I think the core of what Diana was, which was the core of what Diana was when Perez was doing it, that sort of character just ran true here. They're in Gateway City. We get to see her origin. They had some nice storytelling bits of her growing up with all these weird monsters in hell and whatnot. And I don't know if they're getting into the character, but the character that they sort of built in that little storytelling stuff really was strong. I really didn't expect it from them. I had no hopes with seeing Pegasus that was a skeleton that like with wings. I didn't have any hope, but I think Diana as a character coming in there fighting these beasts, where she wasn't just like like who was it, like China from the wrestling found. She wasn't like that. She still seemed like a core of a person. And the key part of it is saying, they're saying you can't say the Amazon thing, and she ultimately is pushing back, and like she's saying, no, like she's an Amazon. So, but this one was a lot of fun. I really was surprised how much I liked it, and the art was just kind of cool, and it had that Europe stuff, but at the same time, it was clean like the Europe comics. So it's not necessarily DC or Dark Side, but at the same time, it was a lot better than I expected. What are your thoughts?
Also, I agree. This was much better than I would have anticipated.
Mhm.
Which it's kind of hard because when you're not anticipating anything,
And just
you
with
know, it's like
books, yeah.
I mean, it's more like how often do you go into a book and you're like, yeah, this is written by who, with art by who? Yeah, yeah, I got high expectations for this, and my expectations were met. That's a great thing. But when you go in and you're kind of like, yeah, I have no hope or expectations, and then your ex pleases you, it's almost like that's like kind of backhanded praise at the end of it. But
Yeah, yeah.
you, you go in and you get a at least not I wouldn't say a full origin, but a solid start to the origin of Wonder Woman. It's actually engaging,
Mhm.
and that's paralleled with her action in terms of her, taking off, all of these, creatures. And, she's just mowing them down, and then she lets the guy know they're not dead, they're just stunned. You're like, what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like, what? These things are coming back. So that's like a whole big ante at the end of the day.
So then we get to, we have nothing else on that. We get to, do I have it here? So I had it here somewhere. The Superman story. Man, where was that book? I have it over here.
Oh,
Uh,
there's nothing else you want to say about Wonder Woman?
no, no, I mean, that was basically, I like the fact that they actually had the origin in there, as you was, I didn't really think about it until you said, but I like the fact that they had not a full origin, but had somewhat of an origin. Not like the
But I really
classic.
want to. I want to see where they're going to go with this because this was a pretty solid start for a character who doesn't have. I mean, she's been around since what 41, and she doesn't really have a lot. She doesn't really have a backlog of stories to delve into. There was, I mean, even guys like what was it, like Bruce Timm. They had him on doing an interview, and he says, "Look, with Wonder Woman, it's very difficult because she doesn't have a go-to story, despite being around as long as she has been. You have what I think were good storylines. I really liked the reboot that came out of Crisis because again, and this is what I really wanted for say Superman. Batman, they didn't really change a lot, but with Superman, I really wanted something. Okay, I can get into this, and they were not scuttling off the previous universe, but really rebuilding it. And you're there from Jump Street, and then they're just going to layer everything in. I felt much more like that with Wonder Woman under under Perez. I thought that was very good. But while it was solid storytelling, there was no singular story that came out of that where I could say, no, no, this right over here, these four issues or that type of thing, just not there for the character. Whereas with Batman, I could, oh yeah, go, Batman, oh yeah, Frank Miller Batman, no problem. Scott Snyder Batman, no problem. Superman, same thing. Oh, no, check out the Jeff Johns run. That was really good. So and these are things that not just that I like, but they are shown that people really, really dug these particular storylines at the end of the day. But with Wonder Woman, not quite there. Not even in terms of like with Batman, you could say Dark Knight Returns. Okay, I could say Dark Knight Returns, or I could say Batman Year One. Both by Frank Miller. One, alternate universe, Elseworlds, and the other one in continuity canon. I could do the same with Superman by the same writer. I could say, oh yeah, check out what Grant Morrison did in All Star Superman. Okay, that was really good. And then if you really want to see some other good stuff that he did, you can look at his Action Comics run, New 52, or you can look at how Superman was portrayed in the Justice League. Fine. No issues, no problems, in either one. When they get to cut loose in an alternative universe, Elseworlds, no problem. Canon universe, no problem. With Wonder Woman, even with that, it's still hard for me to like, no, and I've read a bunch of stuff. It's really hard to like, okay, what is the core of this character? What is she supposed to be doing? And I've slowly watched over the years where she's become more and more masculine. You know, in order, I guess, to like shore up what they think are some of uh the shortcomings of the
Mhm.
character. And I'm like, but the whole idea is her inception was that she was supposed to be the antithesis to that. The whole idea was, these characters in the 19, Superman, Batman, they were deemed that they were too violent, and she was going to come to man's world and show them the way of loving submission, if you will. And that was supposed to be the thrust behind the character. That character in 1941 doesn't exist anymore, as opposed to this one who's supposed to be the best melee fighter in the world, shaking a sword at something every 5 seconds. And when I was first introduced to Wonder Woman, she was 5'8". She's 6'2", and yet somehow Batman and Superman are still taller than her, and they're 6'2". So I can see what they seem to think is important. She needs to be covered up. She needs to be tall enough to look the guys in the eyes. She needs to be a fighter. I would say, but all of the things, all of the feminine qualities that she was supposed to be bringing to the forefront, they're not there anymore. They're not there anymore. So with this, especially in this type of world where where this is Darkseid's world at the end of the day, especially there, I would like to see, well, look, can you bring some of that into it? Do you have not a feminist, but a feminine perspective to counter, a lot of the stuff that we see going on? Because that has been very absent from her character for a very long time. And that was something that really you got from the Perez run, Jimenez run, okay, where these things, those qualities that we would deem as feminine, but no less important or strong than masculine qualities, and showing how complementary they are. Okay, without sacrificing her abilities as a fighter, okay, or as a powerful superhero, but still, the counterbalance to all the stuff that the guys might have been doing. Other than this, she's just one of the boys. So I want to see if they can do something like that with this particular series, because they've been on this tear. If I put down like the 10, if I put down like, 5 or 6 or 10 qualities that would like imbue masculinity at the end of the day, you could check them all off for Wonder Woman. All of them, easily. Okay. And if I did the opposite, you would be like, okay, I said, which character is this? And it was like Wonder Woman. Most guys would be shocked at the end of the day. But I would love to see if they can get a more of a return to that, because she is very distant from those particular origins.
Well, I think, I think the only thing that I think I think post the early run, Wonder Woman kind of suffered from is that they didn't put forth the energy that they, as far as creating villains for her that were good villains. And because at the same time, I think just the argument you put forth, the same one he put forth for Flash, saying, you had so many stories post crisis that you could connect with the Wally West Flash, and the only thing you could connect with Barry was the death of Iris or the marriage with Iris, and then killing the
Are you
Reverse
kidding?
Flash. Hmm?
What, the Flash was so bad they had that whole trial of the Flash thing. I mean,
Well,
part of that was because we knew that the universe was coming to a close, and that Barry wasn't going to make it out.
mhm.
But you know, part of it was like, I think it's ironic. Well, not ironic, but I think it's very interesting, because I'll hear the criticism with Superman. They're all, Superman's boring. He's so powerful. This, that, and the other. But they thought the Flash was so boring. They were like, let's kill him off. We got nothing. We got nothing else to do with
Well,
this dude.
I think they think they were backwards in their planning of it, and the only problem is the same argument you were making, the same argument that Jeff Johns was making when he was doing Flashpoint, saying, after saying, hey, the rogues aren't lame, then saying, hey, there's no signature story. When I mean, this is not, the approach and what Perez did, and he did definitely did some great stuff. It's like, but early on, if she had like a bunch of great villains, you could go back to and just say, oh yeah, Cheetah, you go to Cheetah. I wouldn't go to Gigantor, but you can probably do some stuff with her. And that's the thing of, even though you had one of the greatest artists on in comic books in Ross Andrew drawing her,
What
it,
did you
hmm?
you watched the Justice League series, right?
Unlimited.
Bruce Timm. The
Yeah, I
classic stuff
only
that they
watched
did.
a
You
couple
watched.
of those. Only watch a couple of
th-
those.
There's an episode where the Justice League get captured, Okay, they get captured by the Injustice, the Legion of Doom, Injustice League, whatever you want to call them. And Cheetah is one of this go around. Cheetah is one of the members of the Injustice gang. Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong, but Cheetah is a Wonder Woman villain, correct?
Yeah.
Do you know who she spent the majority of the time with in those episodes?
Hopefully not Batman.
You guessed it, Batman.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, this is a Wonder Woman. It's a Wonder Woman villain, and she spent most of the time with Batman. So stuff like that at the end of the day, where it's like it's not enough to say that she's a great fighter because in the DC universe you got a bunch of great fighters, and she's not just a great fighter, but she's got superpowers.
mhm.
Okay, you got superpowers, you got super strength, super durability, super speed, and once you have those abilities, your ability to fight doesn't matter as much. Okay, because if you're fighting Superman, well, Superman's pretty much indestructible, invulnerable. So you can hit him as hard as you want. It doesn't matter what pressure points you know or anything of that nature. You're not going to be able to hurt him. So the fact that you are quick and you can do these type of flips and you've trained for 1,000 years, it doesn't matter. It's like me punching up against a mountain. It doesn't matter how many times I've thrown that kick. This mountain is going to be resistant to it. So you want to bring some other things to the forefront, but they decided that that was the easiest that was the easiest route to go, and that any femininity on the part of the character shows weakness. And we don't want to show weak women. We want to show strong, independent women. But what their idea of a strong, independent woman is the man.
Well, I just think it's going into. I don't think. I think obviously most of they they kept her. I just always feel it's just she just needed some cool villains, and I think the approach outside of her getting some of the stuff where she's kind of getting a little too violent post the post identity crisis. I think pretty much after outside of her getting the weird.
Post or post identity crisis, or pre identity crisis, because that was I thought the whole idea with identity. Oh, no. I'm thinking infinite crisis. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You're
so
right.
like the whole that I think once identity crisis kind of happened, that kind of led to getting heavier and darker, and then when they had to remember that some of the other aspects of um, some of the aspects of the history that they kind of went into the New 52 with Wonder Woman was kind of going backwards. But then I think they were kind of trying to get it back, but it was with was it Meredith and David Finch was doing it. But I think there's a post I guess post crisis up to like before the actual Wonder Woman kills Morgan Edge, not Morgan Maxwell Lord, Maxwell Lord. That's when it kind of the demarcation for me where it's kind of like, well, this book is kind of going left. But before that, I think with this character, you just kind of need to have cool villains, and I don't think a lot of villains that Perez brought to it, but he was really going for like the old George Reeves type movies where he was putting in new villains, but they were kind of ones where other people wouldn't look at it and say, I want to pull that villain and use this villain for that. So you could easily see the next villain like the same way, like you look at the X-Men as you go along, you could see who the next villain are. Okay, here's the Marauders. The Marauders aren't that great. So, but we got the Freedom Force. Okay, let's go on. Now we got the Reavers. Okay, we can use that. And you see when they go to the movie, you go to the movies. Okay, the Reavers are in here. Oh, these guys are here. Okay, the Brotherhood is here. So it's like that sort of thing where it's easier to do instead of just saying Cheetah in this one. But that say all to say, we have a fun one, and I don't know if we're saying all this to kind of get away from the Superman one, but we have a Superman.
Well,
Um,
no, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to seem like we were giving Wonder Woman short, because short shrift, because we went on a little bit in depth, a little bit more in depth about Batman. I don't want people coming in thinking, oh, you bunch of sexist bastards. You gave Wonder Woman 3 minutes and you guys were out. Like, no. There's some stuff that I really want to see for the character, because at one point Wonder Woman was a book that I was reading on a regular basis, And I think about the time Gail Simone came on the book, I started checking out because the storylines just weren't hitting. New 52 with Brian Azzarello, I was like, I don't know what the heck this is. I'm not. And then I said, I already knew this is not going to stand with the stuff that he was doing and the designs with the Greek gods. I was like, there's no way this is going to stand. So I'm not even going to be bothered with this. I'll wait till they're actually taking this seriously. And now with Tom King, I'm just like, does anybody understand this character? Do they even care? At the end of the day, and when Greg Rucka said that Wonder Woman was 6'2", I was like, you guys made her taller than she already was, and I'm like, what for? And then it becomes very apparent where they feel that her shortcomings are. With Batman, Batman has no shortcomings. They just let's give him more, make him bigger, make him beefier, make him taller. Do this type of stuff, make him spookier, make him more violent. That's fine at the end of the day. Wonder Woman, they definitely feel this character has some shortcomings, and they try to compensate for that with, more added masculinity, in terms of her, which I think is cuckoo. And now we can get to Superman, the biggest character who they feel has the most shortcomings of all.
Well, I'll only say because I saw it at the con. I got a picture with her. They had a Wonder Woman that was my height, and she was. It was like it was. Oh no, she was taller than me. I don't know if it was because of the heels. I didn't look. She didn't look like she
It was
was.
the heels.
I don't know if it was here,
It's
but
gotta be the
she was
gotta
taller.
be the
She had
shoes.
big. She had the hair like obviously no one is as pretty as Linda Carter, but she was gorgeous, and it just felt like the saying Wonder Woman. It felt like that. So I have no
See,
problem with the height, but I hear your points.
the problem I have is the problem. It's not that a woman can't be tall, or that a woman isn't you can't be attractive or feminine with that. It's the idea is like you're putting the height to compensate for the fact that you don't know how to write this character and preserve that femininity. I mean, what's the average? I think the average height for a woman is like 5'4" worldwide. Okay, so you got a woman over here who's supposed to be like this exemplary model for, I guess, if if for a superhero woman, and all of the qualities that she has leaves, like, if I was a woman looking at this, I'm like, wait a minute, these are pretty much unattainable. These are pretty much unattainable at the end of the day. Okay, well, I'm not going to have the height or the superpowers to understand all of that, but let's dig a little bit more into her qualities. And it's one masculine quality after another, and that's the issue. That's the issue that I have. Because you have a character like Big Barda, and what's Big Barda, like 7 feet tall or something? At the end of the day, but Big Barda's character coming from Apocalypse, being raised by Granny Goodness, everything fits. Everything fits. All of that type of stuff. That all of that type of stuff right there is designed. Wonder Woman is supposed to be different. And if she's supposed to be iconic for women, I would just think that she should be a little bit more womanly. That's just me. But I'm glad that you got. I mean, I'm glad that you. Yeah, you never sent me that picture with the Wonder Woman. Thanks. See,
Yeah.
you and Mars, you guys dog me all the
It's
time.
on IG. But anyway, yeah, no, that's the thing. And seeing, not to say that, because I've seen definitely some cute girls and one on, but that kind of felt like, and at the same time for me, not, in my head, it's kind of, I had to be reminded, I know there's tons of people taller than me, but since puberty came late, I'm always reminded at points that I'm taller than people. So when I see the Wonder Woman, I'm just like, oh, this is wow, this is, and I didn't at
And
some point I didn't get a picture with her at first, but then we were later on. She came by, and I was like, oh, I'm not missing this out because the picture she took, she was next to Doctor Doom that I took, and just like the Doctor Doom, I was with that guy for a while. He was huge, and
well,
Wonder Woman was a
at
big
six,
size. Hmm?
no, I'm like at 6 feet tall. I think if the statistics are right, at 6 feet tall, which you are taller than 86% of the population. Like 14% of the population is 6 feet tall, and then once you get like every inch in height you get over there, it gets like drastically less. It's like, okay, you go from six
Oh.
feet to 6'1", and it's something like 8%, and then once you get to 6'2", it's like, it's just not a lot of people. It's
Oh,
just not a lot of people at the end of the day. So
well, I'll say side note. When I first started to flirt, when I used to work at places, and I'd be like I'd be like on kneeling working on something, and there's some girl that I like, and I would stand. I was like, "Does this change anything between us right now?" That was like when I was 18. That was like a big thing. I did that a couple times. I didn't I, like an idiot. I didn't always repeat, which I should have just repeated everything. You know, but anyway, let's get on to which I think this cover is a little better than the picture they sold us on. Give us an idea what this story is about.
Okay, so we get. I don't know. I don't. I'll try to go in order of the story. So we're on Earth. Oh, we're in Brazil. We got We got these people over here who are miners. They're being and they're enforced by peacemakers, which is pretty much these guys who are all dressed looking like, you guessed it, peacemaker. They got a mine. They're pretty much the downtrodden, the oppressed, if you will, and they need a champion, or should I say a champion of the oppressed, if that rings a bell for anyone.
Hmm.
In comes a guy who's kind of, a little standoffish, outsiderish, got a hood on, hair's not too combed or anything. And before you know it, he's their champion. He's fighting them. And this guy has this symbol on the middle of his chest. It looks like an S, but we didn't find out he's from an alien planet where that symbol was the symbol of the lower class. And his parents wore it proudly. They felt that it made them part of what the people there called the people of steel. But his father, who worked on the ground, realizes that the planet is going to blow up. And so things are going to go from there. If this sounds familiar, it should sound familiar because we've seen this so many times. It is the story of Superman in the Absolute Universe, making it the weakest of the three titles that has been offered. It's very hard for me to say that biggest fan as I am, but every single thing that was in this story has already been done. Everything. Nothing was new. Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I will say one thing is that they do start with the Krypton portion where they show you a minor thing, but everything else is pretty much exactly how it happens. Even I think was it World of Krypton, but they had in DC they had Laura doing something scientific. This one they had this big deal of her doing something with the land and whatnot, and waiting for the rain.
Yeah, whatever.
And stuff comes along. I think it was a little too, even though it's scientific, it's a little too grunge. But I will say, I don't like that it doesn't have trunks. I did like the armbands, and I don't know if the footbands are necessarily needed, the pseudo boots, but the armbands were kind of like, hey, this is interesting. Now it's a little, like not totally Captain Marvel, but it's like kind of funky, adding it as an energy thing. So it's like, you're going to do something different. It kind of gives you, obviously be done with the armbands of Captain Marvel, but at the same time having it be energy, something other. I was
Yeah,
like,
they did that with the last suit.
but when you um get to trying to factor in the S to the Kryptonians and try to have, Jor-El had the sun, so we'll have the sun, but it's not going to be for Jor-El. It's going to be for all these other people and that sort of stuff, which is kind of wild. And I think the other problem
It's
is, huh?
kind of wild. It's whack.
Then
No, hold on. Hold on. I'm gonna mute myself so I can just exclaim without bothering you. Go ahead.
And as you go along in this, I really didn't. I think the disjointed trying to do like like Quentin Tarantino where you jump around story wise is like fine if you have a story that's worth doing it so you can go to your flashback and that would relate to something else. And then just kind of like when you get to Superman doing something, things go wrong. And then he got to be captured immediately. Do they have anything for this guy, or has he been out? How long has it been going? Because it felt like with Wonder Woman, it was the first time. I'm not sure about Batman, but it felt like it was the first time. And it's like totally, I mean, if you're going to do a Superman that's wasn't even saying, well, here's a Superman where things don't work. Like what he's doing doesn't work. So it's kind of like, okay, he gets captured by Agent Lane. This is like, oh, please, come on. Listen, she's gonna work for it. She's gonna be. She'll. You might as well be a peacemaker too, you know. But I think it was. I think the storytelling and the art, even though obviously the art has a quality to it, like the guy who did Birthright, it's like it's a little more cleaner than the guy who did Birthright, but at the same time, it's a little too cluttered for me at times, so it's not as clean as it could be. And yeah, I think this one was the roughest of all of them, and it's sad to see, you know, he does the thing which happened with the Jeff Johns ad, the energy, whatever, where he can't control himself and he has a new power, and then no, now I got to take you to jail. You screwed up, and we're gonna take you to jail. So it's kind of like a little too much Man of Steel in it. Having,
Kind of whack.
huh?
I said kind of whack. Don't forget the J, the I.
Oh God. And you know, having some elements of the world of Krypton, but just in a bad way of doing it. You know, trying to highlight Laura doing stuff, but it's like in a bad way to kind of do it. I mean, you also have the going to the original stuff where you had the Kryptonian Council kind of going against Jor-El, saying, "Nah, it ain't working, and you're not leaving," type of deal. But at the same time, I think you could have more fun with it because we need to see more of the character. Whereas the same, like, it was a simple portion of what we got. We got to see a lot of Batman fighting. We didn't get to see a lot on Wonder Woman's story where we saw her, like, you know, this is part one of a continuing thing. So it was like origin, something that she had to deal with, and then say, hey, it's not over, and we're going to go to the next one. This one was kind of like, here's some of the origin, here's where we're at now, here's some more of the origin, and here's you know, and here's Clark Kent as a boy on Krypton, and he's like really grown. Like he's he's you know, and then the whole Lazarus and the Lex Luthor stuff, and we didn't even talk about that. So I need you to come back. What do you think about the Lazarus stuff? And
Oh, you still got to stay with the Krypton stuff. You, what bugs me is that the idea of Krypton is it's supposed to be this idyll where somebody like Superman can actually get a strong foundation, and then he can be thrust into the real world like a classic hero story. All the classic heroes are not. Wonder Woman is pretty much in the same breath. You know, they don't come from our world, and then they are somehow purified in our world, and they come over. Like no, they come from these places where they can be educated, where there's a relative amount of safety, where they know what a functional, peaceful society is like. Then they come to ours, and because they have that grounding, that allows them to be the heroes that we need and want them to be. Instead, they keep going to Krypton, and Krypton, which I mean, Krypton can be an idol. It doesn't have to be this place where you got all this effed up stuff going on, just like our world. You can say that even in the midst of Darkseid's thing, Krypton somehow still managed to be this idol, but they want, they think that Krypton works better if it's a flawed place, as opposed to this utopia that was achieved, over a great amount of time. So that's one thing. And then we get the same. See, I like the fact that Jor-El is supposed to be this super scientist, but then they go over and they're like, well, we want Laura to have agency too. And for me, I'm like, we're really only supposed to meet them when Krypton's about to blow up. We're really not supposed to have all this extra backstory. So for me, I'm like, okay, Jor-El's underground, someplace where he could die, and Laura's out there working in something where she looks like, who's watching this kid? Who's watching this kid? Nobody, like, who's watching him? The robots?
he's
This
watching
is a great
TV.
moment.
He's watching
No, this is,
TV.
they always, and again, they take them, they want to take all of the great moments that we used to have with, say, Superman connecting with Jor-El, because then they always say like, "Oh, well, where's his mom? Why is he only talking to his dad?" And the whole idea was there was this theme of father and son that they were building on, which I thought always worked very well. But now you got an instance right over here, like, okay, well, Jor-El's underground, maybe he could be connecting with mom, and she could be imparting some stuff, some nurturance at the end of it. No, because she's got to be out there, she's got to be out there working too. And I'm like, so who's with this? Who's with this kid? I'm like, those are things that I think are really absent, from understanding why that storyline worked, and then why the more that you layer it, the more you try to get, oh, everybody's got their own thing. Everybody's, Jor-El's a scientist, she's a mathematician. No, sometimes it's, what, it's cool to be like, hey, this was his mother. This was his mother. That was the most important thing in his life at that point because she was still a baby when he got sent over. Even when they did the Bronze Age version, by the time he arrives on Earth, he's like 3 years old. Or but when he leaves, he's 3 years old, and because he has a photographic memory, he still has these memories of Krypton, even though he was still very young when he gets sent over. She was his mother, and so that's pretty much out the window. So I look at all of this, but it's a reflection of our world. It's a reflection of our world where guys got to be doing something, mom's got to be doing something. Well, what about the kid? TV, like you just said. We got the Krypton holo screen, and that's pretty much what we need. The kid will be okay, just watching that. But those are missed opportunities. Instead of coming over and just making it generic. And this is some stuff that I would say with Wonder Woman. The maternal things, the feminine traits. Hey, you can go crazy with it right now. No, she needs a job. She needs a job. That's the important thing at this point. This planet's going to blow up in a little bit, and then of course we'll see something. But and before then, what did he know of his mother? Oh, she was over here working at the end of the day. And then instead of this just being the family crest, this becomes like a sign of the only way that Superman can be a champion of the oppressed is he has to be like from the working class, if you will. Okay, so he's not a hero for the planet. Okay, he's somebody running for the Democratic Party who doesn't know how to connect with working people anymore. That's the approach that they go with him. And then it's always the same thing. The only way that he can be a champion of the oppressed is not by inspiring these guys to say no. Even though your life situation may not change, okay, you guys are still great people, salt of the earth, and I'm here for you. I can't necessarily change your circumstances, overnight, okay, but I'm here for you to inspire you that no, you guys can go better. That people need that too. And instead of we got to get him in there, he's got to beat everybody up. And I'm like, what for? It's not going to change the lives of these people. It's automatically not going to. But the whole idea of him fighting, it's supposed to show that he's the champ. I'm like, no, that's not what Superman was originally anyway. They may take one or two stories and think that's where they're supposed to go with it. And I'm like, if you're the champion of the oppressed, what do the oppressed need? And are you giving it to them? Is that what's happening in the story? It doesn't look like it. You tried to do the work for them. That backfires. Now you're fighting these people over here. How is this helping him? But that's where they want to go because they feel that Superman's shortcomings are one, he was best when he was in the golden age, and not the golden age, just 1938. That's what they think. He was best there. Okay, he's too powerful, so we got to put some checks on that power because we don't want to go back to the Silver Age, the most successful age of Superman. We don't want to go back there at all, because things will get out of pocket when it comes down to that. He's got to be angry, he's got to be dour. Okay, and these are the things that will help us, go. Oh, no trunks. Make certain we get rid of that. Put some armor on him as well, because that's what it pretty much looked at. And now we got a character that we can rock with. We've modernized them, for the audience. And the bottom line is these changes you just did in 2011. Okay, you just did this in 2011, and it didn't take. It was thoroughly rejected. Let's do it again. I'm like, no, you got an opportunity to do something different. You have an opportunity to show, even in a universe that is overwhelmingly dark, you can still have these irrepressible glimpses of light, regardless of that people can gather around, draw inspiration from, okay, and be hopeful, about what's supposed to be coming down the pike, about what tomorrow may bring. And instead, you go for this. You've done all this already. Okay, this is Superman Red Sun. This is Superman, New 52 Superman. Okay, we've seen all the evil Superman between Man of Steel, what went on with Earth 2. We've seen this already, and it's like this should not be such a difficult character to write. It should not be this difficult. I'm one who usually clamors for, look, I would like to see more of Krypton played in, but if Krypton's just going to be as bad as Earth, then what's the sense in having it? He might as well just be raised on Earth. We don't need to see it. Just put him in a spaceship. We don't even need to know where he comes from. And then Krypton just becomes a reason for him to have his powers, but not a place that you can draw on for good story ideas. and someplace that he can go for a repository of information and say, look, how did we solve these problems? We got it. We got to the point that we got a utopia. How did we do it? And then what were the, if there are any shortcomings, if there are any shortcomings at the end of the day, how do I avoid doing that on Earth? That's a good story. That would be great storytelling at the end of the day. But instead, we get this, and it's the stories are all to shore up what they believe are the shortcomings of the character, and he doesn't have those shortcomings. These are perceived shortcomings by the writers, and they keep, again, they're not making any distance with it, which is usually when you get these guys who can come over here and they can write whatever the heck that they want, they usually turn out something that's a little bit better than average, because those restrictions do keep them from their ideas. I think it's utterly ridiculous, but it does work out that way. But now you've got the Absolute Universe Superman making his debut, and if I had to recommend somebody, I'll tell you, no, go read Action Comics with Mark Waid. That's more in line with Superman. Definitely has better storytelling. If you want to see some dark stuff, yeah, you got dark stuff there, but it's not Superman. So again, this was the weakest entry, but I read Superman, so I'll be back for issue 2 and see if they do anything better. Though I agree with you that this is his first time out. He's already getting arrested. Lame. That's straight out of Man of Steel, where we got to see him do the perp walk with the cuffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the core things that was still kind of core is having, well, that's the thing. With Wonder Woman taking her, like saying, hey, this is possibly like Paris Island or Themyscira is possibly what we thought it was. Only thing is, in this time, they kind of took her to hell and put this thing like saying, here we have a Krypton that's kind of like, we're just gonna do this slightly sideways. And if you want to do that, like there's aspects of everything that was happening that they did before. And one of the hard parts is I've never kind of bought into the family crest thing because of seeing Jor-El, in the origins and seeing what became of Origins. I guess it's the Silver Age where he had the son, and the next thing you know, as an emblem or something else. I think earlier he had a different emblem as his thing, but it was just like, okay, now we're going to decide that this thing has to be this longer thing where we get this. And it's comic book, so we don't need the branding of the S going into Krypton, but it's like, oh, hey, now we're going to bring that in here. But the Jor-El here is like not the Jor-El that we've seen that's been in like almost every version. Oh, pretty much every version of him has been that guy. Like, I'm the guy, I'm going to put this together and send my son off, this, that, and the other. And Laura will either be loving or be loving to him, this sort of thing. Less so in what's the name, where she was kind of more part of the elite in the Man of Steel comic book, but she still found that humanity at this portion. So it's just like, we need to have, if we're going to do something different, like, I look at the back to the Batman, where that's Batman. They don't want to get rid of some of the stuff. They just want to have a dark, brutal Batman. So here with Superman, they're like, what do we want here? We want stuff to just kind of bog him down. And it's just like, then I would rather him stay as a baby, but it's just like, then we have to say, well, he's having a cultural thing where he's struggling, coming to this culture like a true immigrant, like saying, hey, he came at this age rather than come at his most, as the smallest version of it, as an infant, coming in as an infant. So it's kind of like, I don't know, and then I keep forgetting that it is Jason Aaron. He's kind of the guide to people, and it's just like, did he have any ideas, or did he just decide, I want to do everything sideways? And we'll get Laura some light. We still have the Kryptonian struggle that we had in the old days, but it's even be more than just the council. It's going to be like this whole split between the two. We're not going to hear it. We're going to go to the Man of Steel where we don't get anything as far as is kind of no. I guess we did get the backstory of what's the name, but we're jumping around. So now we had to go back later and see something else. Batman's obviously a mystery, so they're just like, we want you to kind of stay along to find out how he got this stuff and how he's able to operate with these cool things, even though he doesn't have Wayne Tech anymore. But this kind of feels like, yeah, I mean, it it just was. What can I say? It's kind of like the like out of the. This is not comparing. It's not the same thing because I think the if they were going for like what Stan Lee did for his Superman and Just Imagine, where it just they just kept. I think Stan kept the idea coming. He was like an adult. He did multiple changes to the character that was the core was kind of not really there. It wasn't there at all, right? It was just like a different type of character, but at the same time, he was doing some hero stuff. Like, just throw out everything else if you're gonna just do that. Like, don't have everything, but we're gonna be, the art isn't gonna be clean. You do have some. The artist is, obviously you got some talent. Not always clear what's going on here. It gets busy. That's the easier way to say it. And no, we still have to get to the Lazarus and the Kent house. Like,
who cares?
Why do they own that? What is they figured out who um you know
I'm certain they'll come up with some twist, if you will, something ironic for the Kent house and so on and so forth. And then we got Brainiac, and he's obviously Brainiac because we see the bottled cities and we can see his brain. So, we got that going on. And Luthor would be, but those are, I'll be honest, those are villains. So I expect the villains to be bad, so you can find new ways. It should not be that big of a deal for them to delve into, oh, how much more fearsome, how much more wicked can I make these particular villains? That's easy. That's not a big deal. Okay, that's not a hard thing to tap in. You get in a couple of new designs. What do? You put people in more precarious situations. You kill more people heartlessly. Okay, this is not your father's Luthor or your father's Brainiac, if you will. So I don't have a lot of interest in seeing that, especially when the character that I'm here for doesn't seem to really be up to speed from what you're showing me. And I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it, but is this his first go around? Is this because he seems like he doesn't know what I mean?
yeah.
Getting arrested, getting locked down at the end of the day, and then out of nowhere, oh, I got to use this particular power. Oh, I drained all my power. Now I'm here. I'm like, have you done this before?
Yeah, because they had
And if you haven't,
no, keep
yeah,
going.
it's like,
Sorry.
and if you haven't done it before, and I'm like, and if you haven't done it before, why are you doing it now?
Yeah, because this end portion of it, where they have the Nevada desert with as you, I thought it would probably be Luthor since they're trying the Lazarus thing, but yeah, um, this Brainiac stuff as you mentioned, but at the same time, he's like it's a new toy, so he hasn't seen this Superman yet. So this means that this was possibly his first outing, but it's like things went well, and the next thing he gets hit by lightning and then everything goes left. So and he has to go to jail. So I don't know. It's really tough to say, like I don't know. I guess that is in Jason Aaron's wheelhouse to kind of take the stuff that we've seen and kind of mix it up in a slightly different way, and that's your story. That's your thing. Where it's like, okay, we got the Jean Grey School of Gifted Youngsters or whatever it was, and we had some Brood here, we had some Krakoa something or another here, and that was able to fuel the next thing. We'll have some Lockheed Dragon stuff here. All of the wacky elements of the X-Men we're going to put into this thing, and it's going to work. I can't say the same for Thor because I don't know his work on Thor that well, but just seemed like an effort that.
Thor was awful.
But
He turned Jane Foster into Thor. It was terrible. If you were a Thor exponent, Thor reader, And what happened was the stuff that Jason Aaron started off with was very well received. Then he did this hard shift into Jane Foster, and Thor was no longer. It was literally it came from out of nowhere. It was such a setup for what you thought was going to be a quintessential Thor run, and then before you know it, he's like turned into this sad sack. He's unworthy, and he's not unworthy by anything that he's done. Actually, he's unworthy simply because of something that Nick Fury whispered into his ear, and because of that, he has this crisis of conscience. I was like, that's ridiculous. That's not how this is supposed to work. But then, I mean, you could go all the way. I mean, you could go back to the origin, the origins of Thor, where the hammer is his hammer. It doesn't belong to anyone else. And once it's when he's worthy, it is when he's worthy. That's when the hammer's right. It's not for anybody else. And we find out that the problem was that Thor lacked humility. That was the idea, that he was, the son of Odin. He was, he did not understand what it was like to be humble. And so Odin did this to humble him, and because he had learned that, lesson, he was finally worthy. So that's the big thing. And then that became to, oh no, one, everybody and their brother seemed to be worthy at one point, but it was forgetting that Thor was already a character who had learned what it meant to be humble. He had spent years, as Donald Blake, as being lame, as helping other people. So he understood that. He had learned that lesson back in 1960, 61, 62. He learned that lesson already. And then when we get to Jason Aaron, it's like, oh, he forgot. At some point, he forgot the whole thing. So we got to go through the whole thing all over again. And instead of being lame in one leg, now he's missing an arm. Okay, he loses the hammer. It was just such a bad run at the end of the day. And what was worse about it is that we never learned what made Jane Foster worthy. They just he just wrote.
Cancer.
Huh?
Cancer made it work.
I have no idea. I have no idea, because if it was cancer that made her worthy, I was like, how the heck did that happen? So cancer made her worthy. Thor lost an arm, and I guess he's still no good. So, that was stuff. That was stuff that I would keep in mind. But it was just that was just a very bad outing, and you can tell how bad it was because the character still hasn't recovered from it. He still hasn't recovered from it. You're still doing stuff where they're trying to find their footing once more. But he was so disheveled and decimated by that storyline that I peek in every once in a while to see, look, is it cool to read Thor again? And then I read the issue. I'm like, nope. You got Odin stuck in the hammer. Just bad stuff at the end of the day. So now I'm looking at this, and there's probably more of a leash on Jason Aaron, even when he's doing this, because it's Superman at the end of the day. But you're still seeing the other things of, well, look, we got to deconstruct, rebuild, and I'm like, you got to deconstruct on the first issue.
Yeah.
And the bigger thing that I thought was a great premise is that this is supposed to be a universe where heroism and good are the underdogs. Not like our universe where good is supposed to defeat evil, but a universe where evil is kicking good's tail at the end of the day. And these guys, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and the rest of the league as they come out, will be these points of light that people can be drawn to for hope. The biggest one is supposed to be Superman, and after this issue, I'm like, really? This guy doesn't look like he's ready for prime time.
Yeah, it's it's to see some aspects of kind of the outfit, but except for if they added the trunks. And this one, I don't think is he. He's not. He doesn't have a cape in it, so that kind of was like, what's going on here? Like, but on the cover he has a cape, so it's like, oh, this is something he's gonna get later. And he figures some other stuff out. So there's things here that and I think they should have. I don't know. I mean, maybe they like this artist, and maybe this artist, he kind of his face is kind of me reminded me of this British artist Doug Braithwaite, who had done I think he did one of those
It reminds me of Ivan Rios, but just not as polished.
yeah. So I think the thing is they I think like the Man of Steel, they tried to come up with too much stuff for Krypton when at the same time you don't have to that's one of the things that if going through the golden age of it is that it was something that was slowly we were finding more stuff out, and even Superman himself finding out that he's from Krypton, and we get elements of that as we go along and find out stuff. So it's not something that you have to sit around and say, "Flash, here's this," and it's not until much later where they really get into Laura and the world of Krypton and what was it the no, but they did run into Laura and Jor-El in the Silver Age, but they really got into some sort of a background, the meeting and all that stuff in World of Krypton. This is kind of like, let's roll reverse. It's like she's a farmer. He finds out about it, but he's just he's just a security guard. The what I don't know. I guess that's the thing. The cool part with Wonder Woman is like she's pulled away from this. They could have as many wacky Amazons, or they could find out something terrible that would throw me off and say, "Well, the Amazon did X, Y, Z." But as of right now, it's open. So it's just like, hey, we took Wonder Woman, we threw her here. We take Superman, we threw him. No, we don't. It's not Super. It's this guy who's kind of an immigrant, kind of looks like Miguel from Cobra Kai, comes to Earth and don't have it all figured out. He tried, just like what's the name, and something went wrong, and now somebody's in the hospital, so he got to go in there. But at the same time, it also could be who's that guy? It could be Brainiac who did something, who to show that he's Brainiac, he has his brain visible. But I think they can, I don't know. I guess they didn't want to. Well, I guess Jed Moore is working on two things, so he's making a decent amount of money. I just kind of wish they kind of went with different artists, and for this type of things, I would say the same because it felt kind of. I think the storytelling is better than Birthright. 'Cause the artist had a hard time with it, but it's just not really that. It's not really that good. That's the only thing I can say. Like the shot, even though you got the clean shot of Superman, the shot of punching is just the arm going there and everything else flying in the background, kind of the image type stuff that you would do. So you want to have the key elements, even if you go simpler, more broader, is having the super aspect to the character. And you can't look at the golden age and do it because for the time, that stuff was super. To us now, it's kind of harder. So it's like saying, what aspect of it is super in here? And it's like, well, nah, we're not gonna worry about that. The same I think when I think it was Andy Kubert was doing, Adam Kubert was doing action. He only wasn't there for a little while, but the initial shots were like, oh, this is intense. The story itself was, wait a second, what are you doing? You're gonna be a kid that he brings a kid to the parents and say, show me how you did it. I don't know about that, but it's like the level of what they were doing felt like it was like, okay, yeah, this is it, this is gonna be it, this is gonna be it. And the story didn't unfold that, but you at least had some things to say. Let me give him a chance. And now this one, I don't. With the end of my statement is, I don't feel like I should give them a chance. I think you can do whatever you want. You can have fun with it, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like fun. It doesn't seem like it's big style, the stuff you're getting from the nurturing stuff you got in Wonder Woman with the mother from hell who doesn't want her and winds up, loving her because of the character itself. And then
Yeah.
Batman, where just like, hey, you want, like let's, why don't we do Batman Beyond with the Road Warrior type of deal, or this hockey player, this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, it's Batman. We've always wound up trying to turn him into something. He had the inferior. He is one character that the fans, have given him an inferiority complex, where they keep boosting him, where they keep putting him and say, yeah, put him some armor so he can fight Superman. Let's have him do this. Where it's like, at the same time, he would be able to get captured, beat up, and free himself and save the day at some point. Maybe not the same day, but when he gets out of the trap, he somehow saves the day. So ultimately, yes, we said in the beginning that the Superman was the weakest of the bunch. and it's sad to say,
and
but
and it's sad to say he remains the weakest of the bunch.
but you don't want to
I
have
mean,
this. What?
no, I mean everything that they did, they want to. Okay, this is a Superman who didn't grow up with the Kents, so he got no nurturance from the Kents. Well, you did that already. That was New 52. You killed off his parents when he was young, so he didn't have that particular. You did that already. But the whole idea of doing that is that you wanted him to be more rough, without the guidance, without that particular nurturance. Well, you've been successful. He doesn't seem to have that on Krypton or off. But what's the point? This isn't very hard. If you're supposed to be the champion of the oppressed, well, what is it that the oppressed need? Okay, and you did this bit of work for them. That all went left at the end of the day. So what is it that these guys need? Ultimately, I guess they need freedom. They need to have personal agency. How are you going to do that by what you did in this issue? And that, for a writer, that should be it. If you really want to show him is that, okay, and like you just said, the stuff in the golden age, that was super for 1938 in a country that was going through a Great Depression. Okay, that's where that was at. If it's not that time any longer. So if you want to show that, you're going to have to sit down and think, well, what's the oppression here, and how can Superman actually resolve it? That shouldn't be too hard to do, especially if you want to be able to do it in a physical manner. What is it that you're trying to show? But these people live there. They're not looking to be liberated from a prison camp or anything. They have very hard lives, and they work, they work in very bad conditions, for the money that they're supposed to be getting. And then he goes a step further. He's like, well, how do you know what's true? And he's like, it's true when it's worth fighting for. That doesn't sound good to me. That doesn't make it true just because you want to fight for it. So even your philosophy is off. Simplify it if you have to. Simplify it if you have to. But this is a mistake a lot of these writers fall into when it comes to Superman. They start overthinking things, and the stuff that should be simple, they totally get away from. In the story, Superman should be right. The direction he's taking, he should be right. He should, regardless, always have the right course of action. That's the character. That's the moral compass at the end of the day. But if you're somebody who loves to write this whole shades of gray nonsense, your approach to Superman is going to be hard. Like, well, isn't right and wrong all relative and this, that, and the other? Well, the answer is no. And you're dealing with the character that espouses no. This isn't the case. So those type of things show that you don't understand the character. Your approach is not necessarily on the right track. And then another thing for me is, we already have a universe where Superman and Lois Lane are married. They have a son in John Kent. Do we really need to see Lois Lane in this story? Okay, if she's going to be his antagonist from start to finish, fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But if you're going to make it different, then also get her out of the mix. Also get her out of the mix. And before anybody can say, "Oh, what about, like, if the Kents don't have to be there?" She doesn't have to be there either. All right.
Well,
So this, if you decide to still tap into they're still going to fall in love, then I'm like, I just throw the whole thing out. I don't understand what you're trying to do. I really don't.
well, the thing about I would only throw this out as a hypothetical and saying, like, say, we brought up the New 52. One of the bigger problems with the New 52 was that you had Grant Morrison trying to get to like the core of the golden age, or sort of Superman of the people, and how that would look. But you also had one of the more dynamic artists in Rags Morales doing it. So it's like I stuck along with that story for longer than I would have expected. And I don't think Grant Morrison had a whole plan totally figured out. But at the same time, you had the present day one, which was like, oh, you can't do this, George. You can't do that, George. You can't do any of this stuff. And he started saying, I'm going to send it in to you guys, and you just change whatever you feel is necessary, because you can't keep telling me to change it. It's like, not to say that format for the Action Comics that Grant Morrison is the right way to do it. But if you're going to give us something new with something like that, and you're going to reveal stuff as you go along, have an artist that can pull you in like a Rags Morales. You'll have your look and say, and you got the good grace of, Rags and Grant Morrison and a new look and say, well, I need to find out all this stuff about the character. Only problem you couldn't find out because they had to go back and forth. So they screwed themselves by doing that. And then they said, okay, by issue, I don't know what it was, 11 or 12, maybe it was 20. I keep saying 20, so I'm saying something sooner. He's in the costume now, you know. Okay, now Rags is gone. That sort of thing. It's like you want to have your initial thing planned out so you can get all your key stuff in there, and maybe that could have been something for this universe, and you can find out about Krypton. You have an artist that you want to see what his Krypton would be like, that sort of thing. And I think in here they're just like, I don't know, this guy. Sorry to say, this artist is not the guy for it, and I think he should have tried to keep it more open in what he was trying to do, because I think there is something there to what he's doing. I just not for Superman. So it's like I could see a lot of merit in what Grant Morrison was trying to do with action. I just don't think it hit the right way, and I don't think in looking having the artist that he had with him, it should have really worked out, because it's just like Rags finally he had the identity crisis, this, that, and the other, and it doesn't hit. It's not memorable. You got Grant Morrison, it doesn't hit. You know, like maybe there's another approach to it, but that is saying here, here's Superman. You know, it doesn't work as far as a costume because obviously at some point he's going to get a costume, but maybe this is the costume with Trunks, this, that, and the other. But having Rags do it, and then you're out the park. You got somebody that's dynamic. You come up with, you know, the energy stuff and that sort of thing, but you want to have artists that you can really clearly see. I think at the same time, whereas Wonder Woman didn't have that, it did have an artist that you can understand the storytelling, and you're like, oh yeah, they're in Gateway City. That's the city that she was in. Oh, here, this character here. But at the same time, we're cut off, and we got some backstory we need to find out about. That's all you basically need. And this concentrate on the story you tell, not to say, here's Krypton. We gave you a Krypton, and we give him the family values. Where is my son? Wait a second. Where did this moment come from? I mean, I know you were complaining about the son factor. It's like when he comes home, you see the wife, but like, where is Kal-El? Where is he? He's like, he starts choking.
And she's like, and he's
Working on
and
the.
Laura's like, I don't know, I've been working.
He's like, he's over there. It's
let's
like,
ask let's ask Helix, the robot. Maybe, you know, maybe the robot knows where the kid is at.
but yeah, I think getting, I don't know. I think they think this guy's the next guy. I don't think he's the next guy. I'm not going to necessarily say the Wonder Woman is right on the thing of saying this is something you would market as Wonder Woman, but for what they're doing to the Batman, this kind of works. All right, give him a haircut. I'm going to do the shortest thing. Give him a haircut and Trunks, and then we'll see what we can do with this thing. But otherwise, you saying you're going to check it out? It's feeling like a pass. But if you guys make
Well,
this video a hit like you've done the other All In stuff, then we're probably gonna have to do
I
some
read
more.
I read all the Superman stuff. I read all the Superman stuff as a, you know, as what I would like to call myself, a Superman scholar.
Mhm.
So I like having read this stuff. So I'm like, oh yes. So when I look at this, you know, I can say, yeah, this has been done already because Red Sun, we saw it here. New 52, you know, we saw that here. Earth 2, we saw that here. You know, I've already seen this stuff before. And it's not that you can't I mean, it's still Superman. They've been executing on the same idea since 1938. So it's not like you can't do the same idea over and over again. But you know, the execution and the application, you know, should be effective for, you know, whatever it is that you're presenting to people. But when I can just look, you've already done a dark Superman. You already did a Superman without the Kents. You did a Superman without Trunks. You did a Superman with long hair. You did Krypton that had was darker and wasn't an ideal place. You did a Lois Lane, okay, who was, you know, adversarial, you know, towards Superman. You've done all this stuff already. So when I'm looking at this, for me it jumps out. I'm like, okay, I've already read this. Maybe for someone else who's like, oh, Superman's boring, I don't really care about the character, this would be fresh and new for them. They're like, oh wow, I've never seen this before. But you know, again, they already have preconceived notions about the character. So, but for me, I'll keep reading. And who knows? Maybe he's surprised. May come out with some. There may be some issues. We're like, all right, cool. That's happened before. I was hard on Peter Tomasi's run, like the first two issues, but he won me over. It's possible with this as well. But the big thing is that this is a whole new universe where you should be able to cut loose. And when I see what it is that you believe are the shortcomings of this character, I'm like, okay, if you think that the outfit, the hair, the powers, Krypton, you think all of these things are shortcomings, okay, great. Now you have a universe where you don't have to worry about that type of stuff. And then this is what you're delivering. Like I would have, it's just lacking to start. But again,
Well,
like I was already on record. This was the weakest. This was the weakest of the three to start. Now we're in a big problem at Flash, Green Lantern, and Aquaman all come out, and they're all better too. Then it becomes like, okay, wow, you really guys don't know what to do with the two. At least not in this Ultimate Universe.
well, that's the thing when you bring up if you're gonna do if you're gonna do that, and that's the thing. If if you start in, say they started this and throw out what's the name, throw out the Rags and Grant Morrison, throw in Red Sun, right? You go in and say full on, this is the Red Sun similar Superman, right? And you don't, you start as a mystery of saying this is the dark side one, but it's not. We come up with some sort of thing. You keep maybe the armbands, and then you say, all right, no, actually he's not that. We wanted to start in here, but I mean nowadays with the Cap Nazi story where they finally figured we're going to reveal it's not the case. You can't do that for too long, but in the end of the first issue, it's like okay, it's not what it is, but it's like give us something that's really, it's going to go to the dark side thing. I don't think that that was tacked on to the aspect of what was going on here. It's just like saying Jason Aaron and this artist, they're just going to do their version of stuff. And I thought I was going to say that more with Wonder Woman and Batman, but it really just seems like Superman is just like, we're just going to do what we think is our version, but we're going to give you tidbits. So when you hear, oh, Krypton, oh, Lazarus, oh, is that like guy is like Lex Luthor, but it's like the L thing. Oh, we have Lois Lane, Agent Lane. It's like, well, we know until once we got her as her father as a what's her name. But that's the hard part with the Grant Morrison one was it seemed like it had the elements of the Hulk. Like it had a lot of elements of the early Hulk stories. But anyway, I just think give us a dynamic art, go extra dark, and reveal at the end of the first issue that he's not actually that. It's someone who's going through something like the way Wonder Woman did, but then they be following the Wonder Woman thing. But it's like I don't think this effort is this is his birthright. That's what it feels like. It feels like his birthright, and that's no denigration to birthright. It's just saying like here's my version of the origin. And not and like I don't care about the dark side portion of it. He's gonna be out here and he's going to struggle with what he's doing to save these people. And his power just turns on after he hits lightning.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear you say that because I didn't like Birthright.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. That wasn't.
No, I'm just saying that to say it. That's not
Yeah.
a.
I didn't
It's
have
like,
any.
hey, well, you know what? You read Mark Wade's Birthright. Well, this is my Birthright. It's like, well, great. I haven't liked the other one. So.
So I guess that's about it. We've been we knew we needed to get you out guys something about this. And the Batman has well, that's the other thing. This is the thing I argued with Mars about a lot. And the fact that the comic press or blogs, the fans, they were saying this is going to be a complete failure. What's that other thing? They said that was it the Mark Wade series that came before this, before All In?
No, absolute power.
Absolute Power. They said that was a complete failure. I don't know that it was a complete failure. The Batman.
I don't think it was. I really
Yeah.
don't think it was. I got to look at it again, but because I read, I actually read all four issues of it, and even though I didn't agree with the premise, I was like, this was story wise, this was a good story. You know, that was executed with that. I mean, it was executed well. It was a good story, but also a very unnecessary one to do this. So, you know, that's something else where at the end, all of a sudden, not everybody got their powers back. Some people got powers who never had powers before. Lois Lane is Superwoman. I'm like, do we really need all this? Do we? But
Well,
you know,
I think in terms of just having a crossover for sales, it might not have turned into the biggest sales of a Doomsday Clock or whatever was the last thing that sold really well. But I'm pretty sure it did decent enough because they have Mark Waid working on like everything right now. So you had
yeah,
that.
it did.
Hmm?
No, it did. I'm pretty certain it was six. I'm pretty. It wasn't like if you want to look at something that did numbers for them, it wasn't Dark Knight's Metal,
Okay.
or
Yeah, yeah,
Dark Knight's, or Dark Knight's Heavy Metal,
yeah, yeah.
whatever it might have been. It didn't do those particular numbers, but I still think it was successful. I think it sold well, and it was successful overall in terms of what they wanted to do. So they don't have any issue. They don't have any issue with that. It wasn't a. I can't remember what was the last event the DC did that was like a major bust. They usually tend not to be
Hmm.
major busts overall, but it was what would they do? They did Infinite Frontier. I believe this did better than Infinite Frontier.
Okay.
And Dark Knight's Metal was just hand over fist money for them at the end of the day. But it wasn't that, but it wasn't Infinite Frontier.
So with that said, everyone was for some reason they're saying that this Batman wasn't going to work, and what's the name being like, I really want you fans to like it, that no one was going to buy this, and it's like now when I go to the comic book store, I'm like they're like, um, you can't get any regular Batmans. You can only get these $20 variant ones, and there was barely enough any Wonder Womans when I went. It was because in the store I go to, it has a lot of the more recent issues on the racks with the other stuff. So it's just like, where is this? And oh, there's a couple here. So I got to get a Wonder Woman and Superman, and I'm not sure the sale because this one just came out, but they also been previewing it too. So it's like this, at least initially, and whatever they're seeing from their retail orders, they're full on saying Martian Manhunter, Absolute. And it's like, what does this Martian Manhunter have to do with Darkseid? We don't care. We're giving you something else. So they got a lot of other stuff coming from this thing. So for whatever the initial numbers were, comic fans forgot that number ones and number ones with Batman really work in this day and age. And no, at the same time, I think when they did, I guess it's Legends did well, and obviously Shadow of the Bat did well, and then coming to this stage, a lot of different writers have come on Batman, and they've been fairly successful, that sort of thing. So ultimately, they got something going, and they also have a buzz where they're trying to keep it going to do some more number ones of this Absolute stuff. Only problem is that the comic book industry is in the tough spot. So when you're competing against yourself, what books am I? And that's the thing. People don't want to say what happened with Secret Wars. They want to say they're like, hey, let's say I got these. Say the white one is the Secret Wars, and these three here are my book of the characters that are in Secret Wars. And this is what the kids were doing. They're like, like Fantastic Four, Avengers, X-Men. I got them all in Secret Wars. So it's like you're buying up this. One thing they looked at in Marvel, because there was, Shooter was saying that they looked at it just, even though there were some new, a lot of the readers were, young, and they're still like, well, I can just get them all in this. And that's, in my opinion, why Stan kind of, wouldn't let the people who had their own titles stay in books. You're putting out a lot of books. Like, I felt that you guys had a good plan when you're doing Rebirth. You had a lot of interest and energy in your titles. You did a new line of characters that were doing well, and then you pushed it over the cliff and decided to say, let's buy out the Marvel talent that they're getting rid of. And then ultimately kick out the Marvel talent and say, you're not paying these contracts no more. Or I guess you get rid of Dan Didio and then kick. But yeah, that's my
Well,
sort of.
I don't disagree with all of that. I believe yes, stop paying this Marvel talent this money if they're not producing.
Yeah.
That was Bendis. Uh, I don't know. Dan Didio, I think what got him forced out was the micromanaging. And I think that last storyline with the 5G,
Well, 5G.
I got to read it, what the plan was. And I was just like, but this is a plan to utterly destroy the DC universe as we know it. Why do you want to do this? Did you read it?
Verizon the people to know you got 5G? We got 5G. At least DC here is like saying, we're all in. Then did it
Oh,
like,
no,
oh, there's like Paymasters, 5G.
the storyline was going to end with literally Superman and Batman being responsible for the near destruction of the entire DC
Wow.
universe.
I don't
Okay,
know that. I mean,
and
I didn't hear that, so that's terrible. Yeah, I didn't hear that.
no, it was really, when I looked at it, I was like, this is incredibly dark. It's incredibly dark. And then because of what Superman and Batman would do, that would lead the younger generation to take over in terms of John Kent and you know, well, I can only think John Kent right now. I can't. I don't remember who they were going to have step in, but like Jackson Hyde, I guess for Aquaman, that type of stuff. But
Oh,
when I looked at it, I was like, "This is." I said, "This is some serious stuff." And I'm like, "How do you get these two guys back from this?" I was like, "You might get Batman back because Batman's like, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm going to put on this suit, go out there and beat up criminals. That's what I do." But somebody like Superman, who was very much indebted to the public for trusting him, and you betray the trust on a universal level. I was like, how do you come back from this? And this was like his big idea. So I was like, hey, you dodged a bullet there, but we also know that these stories don't die. They just sit around until somebody like, hey, what's this? Oh, this looks all right. Let's do this. But
yeah.
unfortunately, that tends to be a lot of it too. So I understood the whole thing with Didio and the overpaying for some of this, well, I can only think of Bendis, but overpaying, for that type of stuff and giving him like a corner of the DC universe. It just didn't make a lot of sense because the DC universe is not the Marvel universe. It's not. So if he wanted to come in and actually write, and I thought he understood Superman as a character better than what people might have given him credit for. But the stuff he still wanted to do, the stuff he wanted to execute is just like, nah, no, man, no. This is not it. This doesn't work with this character long term. You can't out Superman and then have a story afterwards. He needs a secret identity, not simply so he has some downtime or because he's hiding from villains and he's trying to protect people, but it's quintessential to the character.
Hmm.
And the speed that Bendis wants to write, where I'm going to accomplish like one thing every 12 issues, it would have been like 5 years before we realized, oh, this is why we need Clark. It would have been ridiculous. So
Did
that was.
Bendis get a signing bonus joining DC?
I don't think so, and I hope he didn't. Shades of Rob Liefeld. I hope he didn't get a bonus.
Because I feel like that's probably why they didn't let him finish or like easy. The thing is, the hard part is that it was so abrupt. Not to say it's hard for me because I thought that
It wasn't hard for me either.
yeah, I thought that initially this could be something for him because he could do like the Daily Planet stuff from time to time, and it sounded like he's trying to introduce new villains, but then you could see it start to go south pretty quickly. But the fact that they did it so abruptly, more so than anyone else, like outside of Grant Morrison on the Green Lantern, and I don't know what their contracts were, but it seems like they were just like flush. They got to flush these down the toilet. I don't care how good you say these things are, though. Get this contract out of here. It's like, hey, we can't.
Well,
Whatever.
that was the time. I mean, that was also the time period too, because DC had just been, well, DC Warner Brothers had just been acquired, and then they got acquired by one person, then they got by one company, then they got acquired by another, and they're being shut off. And they're like, look, that's the first thing they do when they acquire these companies. They're like, look, we just bought this thing. Now it's time to save money. You you're paying how much money? No, no, this has to go. This has to go. And if you're part of it, you got to go with it.
Yeah, because it's like um, they got rid of Jeff Johns's office job, It's like we paying. This is my opinion. Like he's getting like $1 million on this comic book that's late as hell. Like we've already paid him, and he's going to TV. Like how much money do we need to give this guy? Well, he has an editorial thing because he's in on the editorial stuff, but he does also have a freelance thing, and then the TV stuff. He worked his way up from the bottom to get the TV. Like no, he's so it's like three major things. It felt like with John Romita Jr., whether there was a sweet contract, he did at least finish out his contract. Like whatever it wasn't astronomical, so it went from Superman stuff to Batman stuff to at some point going back to Marvel, or it could have been around the same time, but ultimately it seemed a little more like he had a passageway, but while he was there. Here's a period I'm at there. These guys are like Kirby. It's like no more New Gods, no more Green Lantern, no Space Cop, no more whatever Bendis is doing. Let's get out of here. Like he's like so. But ultimately, I'm definitely checking out Wonder Woman. If you guys write in as you sometimes do and say you want more of this stuff, I know still got a couple reviews that some people have asked me to do that I haven't done yet, which I will get to do. But you guys want us to keep doing, we're probably going to be checking out things. Cal definitely said he's going to be checking out the other Cal, or the not real Cal in Absolute Superman. And Batman, we'll see if this arc can hold up after this first slam bam, thank you, beat up everyone. Can they do it every month? Or they're going to have to pull back. That's why the New 52 Batman, they started working on the detective and the owl thing. They slowly built, had some stuff, had some shock value stuff, go to the detective stuff. Okay, the detective stuff wasn't right, and slowly built to it. They did a lot of stuff in this first issue. What are they going to do for the next one? One of them we know, we can see there's a clear line of stuff we need to find out. Superman, we want you to get better. Any last words, Cal?
No, I think that says it all.
Spinner rack.
One thing I will say, yeah, feel free to ask us to look at this stuff. Just because we don't necessarily like it doesn't mean we won't review it for you. And then you cannot like it with us.
And we'll say, even though I'm saying it in a complaining way, some of our more successful videos came that way. So if you want to review, even if I hate them, we will do them. Spinner rack.
We're out.